Try to imagine nothing. Absolute nothingness. No air, no light, no particles, no matter of any kind at all. Just complete emptiness. You can't truly do it. You think you can. You picture darkness. You imagine a void. But even that darkness is already something. Even when you try to imagine empty space, you are still imagining space. And space, it turns out, is far from nothing. This is the point where things become unsettling. This is where your intuition completely breaks down. So here is the real question. What exists between atoms? You were taught in school that everything is made of atoms. Fine. And you probably imagine them as tiny balls, small, solid spheres packed closely together to form matter. But that picture is wrong. They are not packed together. They're not even close. Compared to their size, there is an enormous amount of space separating them. So what fills that space? Most people answer instinctively, nothing, an empty void. The atoms are the stuff, and between them there is only absence, just distance, just emptiness waiting for something to happen. That answer is wrong, completely wrong. Between every atom in your body, between every atom in this room, between every atom everywhere in the universe, something exists, something real, something physical, something that carries energy, produces force, and quietly holds the entire universe together. Let me show you what that means. Place your hand on a table. Go ahead, do it for real if there's a table nearby. You feel resistance, a hard stop. Your hand stops, the table stops. It feels solid, obvious, ordinary. But your hand never actually touched the table. The atoms in your hand never made contact with the atoms in the table, not even close. The outer region of every atom is surrounded by electrons, tiny negative charges moving around the nucleus. When your hand approaches the table, the electrons in your hand approach the electrons in the table. Negative charge approaching negative charge, like meeting like. And what do identical charges do? They repel. They push away from each other. They refuse to overlap. They will not occupy the same region of space. So what you feel when you touch the table, that sensation of solidity, of pressure, of resistance, is not atoms colliding with atoms. It is electrical repulsion, fields pressing against fields, the electrons in your hand getting close enough to the electrons in the table that their electric fields begin forcefully rejecting one another. No, you cannot come closer. This space is already claimed. Your brain translates that electromagnetic resistance into the experience of touch, into solidity, into contact. But there is always a gap, always. Your atoms never meet the atoms of the table. They remain separated by an invisible cushion of electric force. You are floating right now. You are not truly sitting on your chair. You are hovering just above it, suspended by electromagnetic repulsion, balanced on an unseen field of force. You have been floating your entire life. Every time you believed you touched something, you were actually hovering just above it. Now think again about the question we started with. What exists between atoms? Fields. Electric fields, electromagnetic fields. And these fields are not imaginary. People often think fields are just mathematical tools, convenient abstractions physicists use to calculate interactions. But that is wrong. Fields are real. They exist in space. They carry energy. They possess momentum. They act. Every charged particle, every electron, every proton generates an electric field that extends outward in all directions, not just nearby, infinitely outward, growing weaker with distance, but never truly reaching zero. In principle, the electric field from a single electron in your fingertip stretches across the entire universe. Atoms are not isolated objects floating in emptiness. They are centers of influence, regions where fields are strongest, surrounded by vast overlapping zones of interaction.
The space between atoms is filled with field upon field, layer upon layer of electromagnetic influence. What you perceive as solid matter is actually a dense web of overlapping fields, electrons repelling electrons, creating the illusion of solidity through pure force. The substance is not the atoms, the substance is the field. Atoms are simply locations where fields become intense, where activity concentrates. Those fields extend everywhere, including through the space inside your own body. Right now, fields are pushing and pulling, maintaining structure, holding molecules together, preventing you from collapsing inward or tearing apart. Chemical bonds, the forces that bind atoms to molecules, are electromagnetic fields doing work. The structure of matter is the structure of fields. So already the answer to what exists between atoms is clear. Not nothing. Field. Invisible. Energetic. Physical. You never truly touch anything because something is always there, preventing contact, and that something is the field. But now things become even stranger. We have established that the space between atoms is filled with fields, but that's not the whole story, not even close. Let me ask you something. What happens if you remove all the atoms? Not some of them, all of them. You take a region of space and remove every particle, every atom, every molecule, every trace of matter. You create the most perfect vacuum possible. Now what remains? Nothing, right? That's what vacuum's supposed to mean. That's what empty is supposed to mean. But physics says otherwise. Nature refuses to allow true emptiness to exist anywhere, under any circumstances. This comes from quantum mechanics, from something known as the uncertainty principle. Most people have heard of the uncertainty principle. They think it's about measurement, about how observing something disturbs it. That's part of it, but there is something deeper.
The uncertainty principle states that certain pairs of properties cannot both be perfectly defined at the same time: position and momentum, energy and time. And here is the crucial part. You cannot have a region of space with exactly zero energy for any duration. Perfect emptiness would require perfect precision, exactly zero energy. Quantum mechanics forbids that. So instead, the vacuum fluctuates. Even when every particle is removed, space itself remains restless. It trembles. It cannot remain still. Pairs of particles appear spontaneously, out of nowhere. A particle and its antiparticle, an electron and a positron, a quark and an antiquark. They pop into existence. They exist for an incredibly brief moment, so short that it barely makes sense to talk about it. Then they annihilate each other and disappear, as if they were never there. These are called virtual particles. They are called virtual not because they are imaginary, but because you cannot isolate them. You cannot trap them. They vanish too quickly. But they are real. They have measurable effects. So where does the energy come from? You cannot create particles from nothing. That would violate conservation of energy. Here is how nature handles it. The uncertainty principle allows energy to be borrowed as long as it is returned quickly enough. The shorter the time window, the more energy can be borrowed. Virtual particles borrow energy from the vacuum, exist for a fleeting instant, then annihilate and repay the debt. Nature operates on quantum credit, borrowing and repaying, everywhere, all the time. And this is not speculation. We can measure this. There's an experiment called the Casimir effect that proves empty space is not empty. Take two thin metal plates, neutral, uncharged. Place them extremely close together in a vacuum, almost touching but not quite. They attract. Not because of gravity. Gravity is far too weak at this scale. Not because of static electricity. The plates carry no net charge. The space between them is empty. There should be no force.
But there is. The plates move toward each other. Why? Virtual particles. Virtual particles behave like waves, different wavelengths, different modes of vibration. When the plates are very close together, certain wavelengths cannot fit between them. Those virtual particles cannot exist in the gap, but they can exist outside it. So there are fewer virtual particles between the plates than outside them. More quantum activity on the outside, less on the inside. That imbalance creates pressure. The plates are pushed together by empty space itself. This force has been measured precisely. It matches the predictions of quantum mechanics exactly. The vacuum exerts pressure. Empty space pushes. Now think again about our original question. What exists between atoms? Yes, fields, but also a restless quantum vacuum filled with constant fluctuation. Particles appearing and disappearing, borrowing energy, repaying it, billions of times every second. The emptiest places are the busiest. There is no quiet region of the universe. There is no location where nothing happens. You cannot find true emptiness. Anywhere in the cosmos, space churns with activity. The vacuum is not absence, it is the foundation. Particles are not little objects sitting inside empty space. Particles are what fields do. A particle is a ripple, an excitation, a localized disturbance. The electron is not a tiny ball floating in a field. The electron is the field, concentrated and active. Fields exist everywhere, not just where particles appear, everywhere. The entire universe is filled with overlapping fields. Particles are simply the places where those fields become excited. And consider what this means for you. You are made of atoms. Those atoms are mostly empty space. But that space is filled with fields. Those fields fluctuate with virtual particles. And the particles themselves, the electrons and quarks that seem so solid, are just excitations of deeper fields. There is no bottom. There is no final layer of substance. You keep looking for the foundation of reality, and it keeps dissolving. Atoms are mostly empty. The empty is full of fields. The fields are full of fluctuations. The particles are ripples in fields. Fields all the way down. It is like searching for the bottom of a lake and discovering there is no bottom. Only water, endlessly deep. No solid ground. At some point, you have to accept that there is no rock, only process, only activity, only things happening. The universe is not made of stuff. It is made of happening. Matter is not substance sitting in space. Matter is space doing something. You and the empty space beside you are made of the same thing, the same fields, arranged differently. You are a pattern that persists, a ripple that keeps going, a fluctuation complex enough to wonder what it is made of. Those fields connect everything. The electromagnetic field in your body is the same electromagnetic field present in a star billions of light years away. Not a copy, the same continuous field. You are not separate from the universe. You cannot be. You are a localized pattern in fields with no edges. So return to the question one last time. What exists between atoms? Fields. Real physical fields that carry energy and exert force. A quantum vacuum alive with fluctuation. Activity that never stops. Potential present at every point in space. Not nothing. Never nothing. The space between atoms is the same thing the atoms themselves are made of, just in a quieter state. When you reach out to touch something, you do not cross empty distance. You push through fields. Your fields interact with other fields. Electromagnetic repulsion creates the sensation of contact. There is no emptiness to cross, only field. The solid world and the empty space beside it are the same thing. Both are field. The difference is intensity, pattern, arrangement. And once this sinks in, reality looks different. The world stops being solid objects in empty space. It becomes a web of interacting fields, patterns forming and dissolving, activity without pause, no hard boundaries, no true emptiness, everything connected by the very medium it is made of. You are made of that medium, a brief, intricate ripple in fields that existed before you and will exist after you. The space inside you and the space between galaxies is the same space, made of the same fields, doing the same things, only arranged differently. That is the answer. That is what exists between atoms. Not nothing, something. The same something atoms themselves are made of. There is no real between, only field everywhere in different states of excitation. And now try again to imagine nothing, true nothing, absolute emptiness. You can't, and now you know why. Because nothing doesn't exist. It never did. The universe is incapable of emptiness. Even the quietest, most remote region of space seethes with activity. Reality is not stuff and void. Reality is field, and the field is everywhere, and everywhere something is happening. That is what lies between atoms. That is what lies between everything. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The solid world dissolves into shimmering activity, and emptiness reveals itself as the busiest place of all.